Church, it's been so cool to go through this series and ask the question, what if God? What if God could change us? What if God could heal us? And today I want to add to this series of sermons the title, What If God Restores True Friendship in Violent Times? True friendship in violent times. Let's go to our text. I'm going to be in the Gospel of Matthew. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 26. Chapter 26, verses 47 through 50. I'll be reading from the NLT. Hear, friends, the word of the Lord. And even as Jesus said this, Judas, one of the 12 disciples, arrived with a crowd of men, armed with swords and clubs. They had been sent by the leading priests and elders of the people. The traitor, Judas, had given them a prearranged signal. You will know which one to arrest when I greet him with a kiss. So Judas came straight to Jesus. Greetings, Rabbi. He exclaimed and gave Jesus the kiss. Jesus said, my friend. Jesus said, my friend, go ahead and do what you have come for. Then the others grabbed Jesus and arrested him. Friends, this is the word of the Lord, and we all say together, thanks be to God. I don't need to go through all of the details, but I can tell you that we are living in some troubled days. Troubled days, confusing times, times that keep us up at night, times that have made dinner time conversations tough, intense. And over the last 2 weeks, we've had to process a lot. We've had to process violence after violence. We've had to process shootings. We've had to process tragedies at schools. We've had to process unnerving political news. We've had to process so much. Another thing that we've had to process is, what do we do when those who are close to us, those that we love, have ideas that go against our own? What do we do when we hear some disconcerting beliefs that somebody has that we love, but now it's making us question the relationship, question the bond, question the friendship? And I think that Jesus here in Matthew 26 gives us a healthy framework for what we do when betrayal comes. And I just want to look for a minute at Jesus and Judas and what they teach us. The first thing that they teach us, that Judas teaches us actually, is that betrayal, heartbreak, disappointment is always close. I don't think you can feel the heartbreak and the sting of words unless it comes from those close. I don't think you can feel the sting of betrayal unless it comes from institutions and systems where you put your trust in. I don't think you can feel it unless it's close. Judas walked with Jesus. Judas shared meals with Jesus. Judas heard the sermons of Jesus. Judas saw the miracles of Jesus. And yet, Judas still betrays Jesus. And betrayal often comes from those who are able to share a table, but not able to share a mission. Betrayal most of the time comes from those who are able to share table, to break bread, to come into worship together. But then once we leave worship and once we leave the church, we don't share the same mission. Betrayal is always close. Jesus uses this word, friend, when Judas comes to hand him over to be arrested. Friend. And this word is prophetic. I'm going to get to that word prophetic in just a minute, but I want to focus on the word friend right now. He didn't say enemy. He didn't say traitor. Matthew, the writer who wrote the gospel, called Judas that, but Jesus calls him something else. Jesus calls him friend. Friend in the Greek is heteros, is that word. It means companion. It means associate. It means close, confident. It's not just intimate, but it's relational. Jesus is acknowledging the history that him and Judas had together. And in this moment where they're at odds, I mean true odds, could you imagine the sting that Jesus felt in this moment? And even with that sting, how bad it probably hurt. And Jesus, knowing what was about to happen to him, Jesus chooses not to dehumanize Judas. Not to dehumanize him, not to excuse him either, though. Not to dehumanize him, but not to excuse him. That's important. Because as we process what's been going on, it's easy to excuse while also trying not to dehumanize. And we have to be careful and thread a fine line, because there's two parts to Jesus' statement that's incredible here. He says, friend, we have a relationship. Friend, we've walked together. Friend, we've talked together. Friend, we've lived together. Friend, we've broken bread together. Comma, do what you came to do. Do the evil you came to do. Do the thing that's against God's will. Do the thing that's about to hand me over to death. Do the thing. Friend, do what you came to do. There's two competing actions going on there. We can name someone's humanity, but also we should be able to hold to the fire of accountability their actions. Third thing that's important. The early church practiced prophetic friendship as resistance. Acts 2, let's go to Acts 2 real quick. It says, and if you need further reference, it's right outside our door. If you go into our office section, we have this plastered on our wall here at the church. We believe this so strongly. This is what prophetic friendship looked like after the Holy Spirit comes and falls on the apostles, and after they received the gift of fire and tongues, and they were speaking in other languages. This is what it says that they lived like. All the believers, somebody say all of them. All of them devoted themselves to the apostles' teachings and to the fellowship and to the sharing in meals, including the Lord's Supper and to prayer. A deep sense of awe came over all of them. Somebody say all of them. And the apostles performed many miraculous signs and wonders. And all the believers met together in one place and shared everything they had. They sold their property and possessions and shared the money with those in need. They worshiped together at the temple each day, met in homes for the Lord's Supper, and shared their meals with great joy and generosity, all the while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of all the people. And each day, the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. So what is a prophetic Christian? Because we use this word a lot, but do we actually have an understanding of what a prophetic Christian means? A lot of times we think of it as emotional outpouring, your euphoric moments, speaking in tongues, being slayed in the spirit, all those other terms we've heard throughout the years. And that's all good, that's all well and dandy, but One of my friends, he's not really my friend, I've never met him, but I read a lot of his books. His name is Walter Brueggemann, and I think he gives us a healthy definition for what it means to be prophetic. Let's read it. A prophetic Christian is one who nourishes a consciousness and perception alternative to that of the dominant culture. Let me put that in layman's terms. Someone who thinks differently from the world. They think with the mind of God. They think with the lens of God. Prophets create that imagination first by critiquing the regnant world opposed to God's will, and second, this one's important, by energizing God's people to a new way of life and being. The apostles in Acts 2 were able to live this way because they were sold out to being prophetic. They weren't sold out to being like Judas was, which was going the way of the world. They were sold out to being something different, something that could leave a mark, something that could grow from generation to generation. And because they lived into this ethic of being prophetic Christians, they saw that the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. Not just in their era, but even now today we see those being saved daily. So as we look at the violence, as we look at the tension, and everything that is clouding our minds, I want to share some thoughts because I think these last 2 weeks have given all of us who call this country our home, given us a mirror, a two-sided mirror. And on one side of the mirror, we see the evil of violence. When bullets fly because of politics, mental health, deranged people, the church must say clearly, this is not the way of Jesus. It's not the way. And the church must also recognize we do not fight flesh and blood, but powers and principalities. We don't kill our enemies. We pray for them. And we bear witness for a new kingdom to come. On the other side of this mirror, it's the poison that comes from ideology. The poison that comes from excusing bigotry, racial resentment, anti-immigrant fear, contempt of the poor, making people feel less than human. These are not minor disagreements that we can just leave in the arena of debate. These are betrayals of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Yeah, betrayals of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And right now, I don't need to name names for you to know who I'm talking about or what I'm talking about. But what I need to say is that those things do not build kingdom. Those things do not build community. And those things do not get us closer to friendship with each other and friendship with Jesus. This is what a prophetic friendship demands: to tell the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's difficult. So, what does this require? What are our takeaways? What should we do about this? Refuse to dehumanize, even in disagreement. Even in disagreement. I do a lot of cultural competency and justice work at Hope College. And any of my students that work with me and come to these events, they'll tell you about the first thing that we do when the event starts. We eat food. We eat food. For one, because, let's be honest, food makes things easier to go to, I think, personally. But on a human level, eating food is a very vulnerable act. Has anyone ever been out to like Applebee's or something, you eat and all of a sudden the waiter or waitress comes by, like, how's your food? You're like, it's good. It's vulnerable. But I think when you get to share food, share table, see somebody eat, and see somebody be vulnerable, and see somebody be human, you're able to not just make them a label, you're able to make them a person in your mind. Refuse to excuse sin, even in grief. I mourn the violence that we've seen over these last 2 weeks. I mourn deeply what happened at the school in Denver. I mourn deeply what happened to Charlie Kirk 2 weeks ago. But that also doesn't mean that I excuse the hatred that fueled his platform. You can be mad at me for it, that's fine. You can come and find me and we can talk about it, but I will not excuse it. Just like Jesus did not excuse Judas. Friend, do what you came to do. Friend, do what you came to do. Jesus gives us a healthy framework for how we can hold grace and truth all in the same sentence. And then practice friendship as resistance. Like you, I've been angry. I've been upset over these last couple weeks. I've been worn out. I've been frustrated. I've been tired. But I keep hearing those words that Jesus said on the cross. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And actually, instead of saying that about other people, my prayer has been, Father, forgive me. I've been angry. I've been frustrated. I see your post, and now I'm thinking differently about that person. Father, get all that out my heart. Get all that out my mind. I don't want that in my soul. I want to see each person that I encounter as an image bearer of God, not as an idea that exists in digital space. And then commit to peacemaking, not neutrality. I think we have a warped understanding of peace in our day and age. We think of peace as the absence of tension. Dr. Martin Luther King calls that false peace. False peace. True peace is the presence of tension, but also the willingness to overcome that tension together, in community. Peacemaking is different from avoiding problems. Peacemaking is different from avoiding the tension. Peacemaking is different from absolving the way that somebody lived just because they lost their lives. We still have to hold ideas and values to the fire of accountability today, church. That's what Jesus shows us in his final encounter with Judas. He shows us the heart of Judas. I'm going to call the worship team back up. I think about Judas a lot because the last words that he heard from his rabbi, his teacher, was friend. Was friend. Do what you came to do. Jesus, the last thing that he received from his betrayer, Judas, was a kiss. And it, to me, highlights the cost and the hope that's in Jesus. The cost is that we have to approach some hard things, especially in this day and age, especially at this time that we're living in this country. And the hope is what Jesus says on the cross. Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. Father, into your hands, I commit my spirit. Father, if this cup of suffering could pass from me, he says in the garden. But then he says, nevertheless, your will be done. And that's the hope today, is that the will of God could come into our communities, come into our conversations, come into these hard things, come into these things that we want to make black and white, but they're really gray. It's going to take conversation. It's going to take listening. And those things are going to be hard. But if the hope is Jesus, his blood, his cross, his life, his resurrection, his death, and his ascension, and the fact that he's seated on the right hand of the Father with all the power and all the glory, if that's the hope, then church, I think we have all the hope that we need. Bless you.